Assalamu alaikum, welcome to Dialogue. I'm Taimur, Shamil. The Americans and the Taliban are holding talks in Qatar today. This is the 7th round of talks between the Americans and the Taliban. A few days back, there were few things that the American envoy Zalmay Khalilzad hinted at, and Secretary Pompeo of the United States interestingly said that he's expecting some sort of a deal before September 1st of this year with the Taliban. Now, this statement is very interesting. At the moment, if we see the grassroots level or the things that are going on in Afghanistan at the moment, perhaps the environment is not very friendly or adequate for the peace that or the deal that the Secretary Pompeo is looking at. But still, if he has said that, there is something important, there is something interesting. We are going to discuss about that as well, because few days back, the American envoy Zalmay Khalilzad tweeted that we are not talking about the withdrawal of troops with the Taliban, rather we are talking about the peace deal. Now the thing is that the Taliban, they want the US forces, the NATO forces to pull out troops from Afghanistan. That is the first condition, and then they can talk about peace in Afghanistan or some sort of settlement with the Americans. Keeping these 2 points in mind, Americans and Taliban, the third and the most important factor in Afghanistan is the Kabul government itself. Taliban do not accept the Kabul government. They have denied talks with the Kabul government on various platforms. The Taliban rather have been meeting other political leaders of Afghanistan in Moscow, and also they have been discussing these things with the Americans in Qatar, but so far there is no officially formal meeting with the Kabul government. We are going to discuss about all these things, and also President Ghani's 2 days visit to Pakistan, which is very significant in terms of Pakistan-Afghanistan relations. Both countries have seen ups and downs, but officials are of the view that this visit of President Ashraf Ghani is going to be a new era for Pakistan-Afghanistan relations. We hope for the best, and we hope that peace is going to prevail in Afghanistan and in the region. We're going to discuss about the Afghan affairs, Afghanistan situation, and the implications for Pakistan with our special guest in the studios. Our first guest is Brigadier retired Ihsan Shah, renowned senior analyst on Pakistan's security, on Pakistan's national security, and on the Afghanistan affairs. So welcome to the show. Our second guest is Mr. Syed Moazam Ali Hashmi, renowned senior analyst on Pakistan's foreign policy and also on Afghanistan affairs. So welcome to the show.
Assalamu alaikum and a very good evening.
Thank you. Good evening. Brigadier Shah, starting with these talks in Qatar that are taking place today. Taliban were at one point hinting at the withdrawal of US troops, and the American envoy Khalilzad had to clarify on Twitter that we are not talking about the withdrawal of US troops but about the peace settlement. How do you see all these developments taking place, Lahore peace process, President Ghani's visit, and the things going on at the moment?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I think it is very healthy sign that the peace process in Afghanistan has gained momentum. There were barriers before that somewhere the Taliban were sticking to their point and the Americans were sticking to their point, but I think both sides have lost some ground and they are interested to reach some commonality or some common ground in between. This is the 7th round of talks in Doha. Previously there was a Moscow process and then the Lahore process, and all these negotiations have led to something solid and concrete. Now the Ashraf Ghani visit has also added another hope, because Ashraf Ghani was the side who was sidelined from the talks, and the Taliban were reluctant to have direct negotiations with the Afghan government. But I think I have been reading in between the lines that the Americans have agreed to leave Afghanistan and reach some settlement before September. And the statement by Pompeo that by 1st September we are going to have some settlement in Afghanistan, I think that is very encouraging.
I think a big statement, by the way.
And a big statement, because this has come from the horse's mouth. And Trump is also interested to have his word which he has given in the election campaign that we will withdraw from Afghanistan. I think he is also reaching that point, because in 20th he is going for re-election, and his percentage, his rating in the Republicans have gone up 88%.
And interestingly, in Afghanistan as well, by September,
in
we'll be
Afghanistan
having
by September they are going to have elections.
elections.
And Ashraf Ghani, the recent visit of Ashraf Ghani was not in isolation. One day before, Pompeo visited Kabul and he held discussion in detail with Ashraf Ghani. And the next day he came to meet Imran Khan and the security agencies inside Pakistan, and Pakistan provided him the place where all 20 delegations from Afghanistan gathered here, in which multi-directional forces, Rashid Dostum was here, Hanif Atmar was here, and Gulbuddin Hikmatyar, the former Prime Minister and a very experienced warlord inside Afghanistan who matters, he was here. So I think all these things, if we see it through the lenses of a peace-loving citizens and a peace-loving man who follows this very closely, they should be of the opinion that something in the interest of the region and Afghanistan in the domain of peace is going to take place.
Right. And Mr. Hashmi, what do you think would be the outcome of the talks taking place today in Doha? Because Taliban now are talking to the Americans with the position of strength as well. The elections are nearing in September. What is the situation in Afghanistan?
Well, I always say that, always suggest that with any individual piece of talks or a group of talks, we should not try to pull a rabbit out of the hat, number one. Okay, it's good that the talks are going on, ball is keep rolling, this is what the communication is. Okay, and even your worst enemy, you want to keep communicating, because cutting the communications means
that's what diplomacy is. You have to open,
exactly.
Right?
So just if the talk and talks process is going on, it does not mean that something is going to happen, you are going to pull a rabbit out of the hat or something. It's not like that. Now, I've been keep saying it in the past 6 or 7 years, whenever this US has thrown this feeler that they are going to withdraw from Afghanistan. I will say that don't get excited, overexcited with this thing. When they said that we are going to talk about, and you see that everybody was so excited they are going to leave a big open ground, so everybody will go and play cricket in Afghanistan. That's not going to happen, and that's exactly, you say that it's not happening. Okay. Now they want to withdraw for a couple of reasons. Now the peace process, in my opinion, is a big military industrial complex campaign, right? So, and not necessarily to bring peace and end the conflict, because it's industrial business for the military and for other purposes. So we have to keep in mind that. And another factor is that what USA wants to do, the main parties is not the Kabul government, because Kabul government, if you see in the past 20 years or more, never echoed behind Kabul. So that's what their limitation is. So the main factor in the talks is the Taliban and the United States. Now United States has done work over there, and nobody is going to finance their large military, which were sitting and were employed and being paid by the US Treasury for their salaries. So they were employed at the cost of allies, right? So nobody is going to finance them over there, and USA has to start a military campaign elsewhere in the world.
And by the way, they have also announced, you rightly said that in 2020, the US would also stop. The reports are the financing the forces in Afghanistan.
Exactly. So the point is that it's not just the footprints, the foothold of the United States will always be there in Afghanistan. It's another temporary phase that we have seen 30 years ago that they withdrew. So it's another temporary phase, they want to withdraw from there, but the foothold would be there better than before. Now the thing is that this process is going on now. With the Taliban, it has to be a meaningful dialogue, and with meaningful, Talibans are very clear about it, that we want to have the emirate thing over there, we want to have our own rules and less interference from the foreign forces, right? And that probably might not be an agreeable issue for the external forces that have been investing a lot in it. Now another point is that we'll talk about remedial part in the next take. So in this I call it an anatomical take of mine. Another factor is that whether you want to really reach a peace, I reached to a conclusion over the years that there is not only that the big military industrial complex forces which are investing in it and making money out of it and keep their shops being oiled and keep running because of the conflict. Another middle class, a white collar factor has emerged in Afghanistan over the years.
Yes.
That's the NGO sectors, that the other people who are benefiting out of it. See, if Afghanistan's economy had been ruined, it has been developed also. Now see, 1 rupee is to 2 Afghanis.
Right.
See, it has improved that much. So the point is that there are many factors. They don't want the peace to be reached in its absolute terms. This has to be noted, right? The process is going there, and it will go there, continue over there to reach some kind of a settlement, so US can focus elsewhere in the world.
So, Brigadier Shah, would you agree with this? This idea is very important and interesting. What Mr. Hashmi just said, that we heard about the pullout of US troops from Afghanistan. President Trump actually was going to order for that. He ordered the pullout of troops from Syria. But in Afghanistan, generals like General James Mattis wasn't on the same page with President Trump, and the military wants to go on with the Afghan involvement, but they don't want to pull out haphazardly. What would be the outcome, let's say, of these talks? And do you see anything happening, anything substantial happening later this year?
The Americans have invested so much in Afghanistan. It is not overnight. They've been fighting this war since the Russian intervention in Afghanistan, and that was in 1979-78. Now, right from there, trillions of money have been spent inside Afghanistan. And Afghanistan is like, just not like Syria or Egypt or Libya. Afghanistan is bordered, it is a very strategic place in Asia, and it is a hub from where many things can radiate, and the interests are in conflict. Here Russia is bordering, China is bordering, Pakistan is there, and then Iran, who America and Iran, they are on the brink of the conflict. So on the brink of the conflict. So you understand that in Afghanistan, they cannot be on the same page, because Trump is eyeing on the next election. But the generals who are strategists there, they see that if they withdraw like the Russians withdrew from Afghanistan, then it is going again to be mayhem for the region also, and the international community also.
Right.
So this is number one, that is why that they are in conflict. They have a different opinion. So for American withdrawal of American troops from Afghanistan is concerned. This is number one. The second thing is that if America withdraws from Afghanistan immediately, then who are going to fill this vacuum? Either Russia is going to come, China is going to come. The border between Afghanistan and Pakistan is also not stable, and the IS element is also there.
But by the way, why should we even consider that somebody else would come in and fill the vacuum? The people of Afghanistan.
It is not the coming of the forces.
Yeah.
It is coming of the influences. It is the economic influence. It is the political influence, and it is a war which is fought by proxies. And a proxy is not only in military terms. It is fought in so many other terms. So I think if they are not on the same page, they have a different opinion to the problem tackled by the military of America, by the Pentagon, by the politicians, or by the statesmen.
But this is a very interesting point. Do you think that if US pulls out, they would still keep their influence in Afghanistan, and would that be acceptable to the Taliban?
I think they will keep their influence in some way. It is not that they are going to withdraw from Afghanistan, because they have had a bad experience post-Russian withdrawal in post-Russian withdrawal case.
Right.
So I do not think that they will vacate Afghanistan just like that. And that is, let me finish it here. That is one of the point where they want guarantees. Where these talks are stalled. Now it is stalled on 2 points. Number one, they want, the Taliban are interested that the forces must withdraw immediately, and in total. And the Americans are resisting, they are asking who will guarantee peace in Afghanistan.
Right.
And number two, that who are going to guarantee that there will be no conflict in Afghanistan by the intra-Afghan forces, by the warlords, by the various ethnic communities like Tajik, Hazaras, Pashtun, Persians, all these people. And the third is that they are interested that the influence like ISIS should not overtake Taliban or those elements who can create another threat to American interest in future.
In future. So these challenges, Mr. Hashmi, in Afghanistan are big challenges for the Afghan government. How do you see the peace deal in Afghanistan, the peace settlement in Afghanistan? What would it look like?
You see, as far the challenges are concerned, Afghanistan checkerboard has always been very interesting in terms of challenges. Currently, I see two big triangles. Number one is the United States, India, and Taliban. Okay, this is one. Now, the another triangle is China, Russia, and Iran. Okay, so the second one is a passive one, and the most active one is the first triangle. Okay, now Pakistan is sitting, at the receiving end of whether the shock or whether the rewards, whatever would come. The point is that as for Chinese are concerned, Chinese don't have the capacity and don't have the interest to get fully involved in Afghanistan.
Put their boots on the ground.
They are not going to do that. Their interests are economic interests. Russia also doesn't have the capacity at that time to fully take over that thing. Iran, of course, doesn't want to get involved in that.
And that wouldn't be a viable option for any of them.
Any of them. So just keep this side aside. So the force remain to reckon with is the United States. And why the Indians are interested? For two reasons. Number one is that Indians, lot of developments of several $1 billion it at stake in Afghanistan, and they are crying about it. They want to save it. Now, who is going to do that? Let me take you a fast rewind to 1997. Until 1997, we had two sets of different pipelines for oil and gas flow downwards up to the Northern Alliance area, up to Herat. Okay. Number one was Unicol. Unicol was a Dick Cheney's company. Number two was the Oxy. So they had all the infrastructure done over there. But when Taliban took over for a few years, everything was in doldrum. Nothing happened then. So US interest is always there. It's economic and military both. Chinese interest is economic interest, and they are not going to, for the capability and capacity reasons, and for their economic interest, they are not going to get involved. So who is going to take over? Like Brigadier Shah has mentioned that. So for that very big reason, American military strategies.
Do you think that this Moscow track is perhaps working out for that leadership under which the Afghans can unite? Because Taliban, even former President Hamid Karzai was there, Fawzia Kufi for that matter, women, different politicians. In Qatar, that's purely about withdrawal. So Moscow is talking about some political aspects. Do you agree with that?
Look, withdrawal is one aspect. Right. Withdrawal is one aspect of the whole picture. So don't see it as an isolation, right? And that withdrawal doesn't mean, full withdrawal, all right? You want to keep not the footprint, you want to keep your foothold over there. Yeah. Okay, you are not going to lose over there like you did, United States did in the past one time, and India and China both don't have the capacity. Russia also. So what these people can do is that they will try to hold some proxies to lead that show, and which won't be effective.
Right.
That's the reason. And when Pakistan's interest come, it is important because Pakistan seeks security and political influence in Afghanistan or Afghanistan's development. So in Pakistan's lines are very clear that India can take the development part, let us take care of the political and security side. And all the skirmishes, was being fought or played on this particular thing. So at the moment, we don't see any leadership to fill the vacuum over there. So this is the question which is being worked out at this moment.
And interestingly, just to what you are saying, Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi, he while giving a speech giving a talk at the Lahore process, he said that Pakistan supports Afghanistan, which is at peace with itself. So this
Yes,
concept of
I was coming
being
to that.
peace.
As you were knowing that what I am going to say, at the moment, it is not that when Americans are leaving Afghanistan, it is not the worry. It has been decided and it is clear on the wall that Americans are going to leave Afghanistan in a couple of months, by September, by December.
Sooner or later.
Sooner or later they will go.
Okay.
The region and the world is worried how peace will come Afghanistan.
Yeah. Political stability for them.
Because peace in itself is threatened by the people of Afghanistan inside. You know, in north there is a different government. Afghanistan has always been led by the warlords. There are 32 provinces, and in the 32 provinces every warlord is a different warlord than the next one. So all these 32 warlords provincially, and then ethnically you aid the other warlords, and then politically you aid the warlords, and then religiously you aid other warlords. So there is a huge federation or confederation or a huge
Different factions of
gathering
Right.
of the warlordism in Afghanistan. So this is the question, that how these warlords are going to sit on one table and decide the formula to rule Afghanistan.
So do you think that
that's why we are concerned, and we are always saying Afghan owned, Afghan led. Somebody should lead Afghanistan centrally. You know, I was saying here in these programs that I have been reading the history very keenly of Afghanistan, and when King Zahir Shah used to go and visit a province inside our vilayat in Afghanistan, he used to get permission from the warlord. Should I come to your province? Should I come to your warlordism? And if he says yes, you come. Badshah Sahab, only then Zahir Shah used to go. Warlord, why?
So there are fiefdoms.
Why the defense minister is very strong always in Afghanistan? Because he has main power behind him.
Right.
And the foreign minister, it doesn't matter that much.
You're right.
So this
and
is
these are the ground realities in
Ground
Afghanistan. But at the same time, there's another factor, and that factor is the young people in Afghanistan. There's a whole new generation of young people who want peace and stability, who want Afghanistan to be stable, economically prosperous, and opening to the world. We are going to discuss about this after this break, and we'll be coming to your point. We are going to continue our discussion on Pakistan-Afghanistan relations and the political situation inside Afghanistan after this break. Stay with us. Welcome back. We are discussing the talks between the Americans and the Taliban in Qatar today, taking place in Qatar, in Doha. Taliban and the Americans have been talking about the withdrawal of US troops and also the peace settlement. What is going to be the outcome? We are talking about this in a general perception about Afghanistan, the security situation and the political situation over there. Brigadier Shah, talking about these factors, we talked about another factor recently that came up is the young people of Afghanistan. They want peace and stability over there. In last 18 years, they have seen people fighting, the Taliban attacking the people in Kabul and elsewhere. Kabul and Taliban fighting, but a layman, a common man in Afghanistan, he wants peace. That's what we all want.
I think that's a very good sign. I have seen these developments. One, when the rise of Taliban was there, when they rose, because they were sick of the infighting of the forces inside Afghanistan. And then there was a social uprising that we want peace. We do not want any warlord here and there. And the Afghan people accepted them. If you remember that there was such a the sample of peace inside Afghanistan during the Taliban government that nowhere in the world you could find. It was unparalleled.
Yeah.
Today again there is a feeling inside the youth of Afghanistan that we are sick of the fighting, of the warlordism and all these. I would disagree on one factor with my colleague, that the economy has gone stable. I would not agree to that, because it's a bubble economy. There is no industry inside Afghanistan. There is no connectivity with the region by Afghanistan. There is no trade going on. There is a landlocked country. The infrastructure inside Afghanistan has not been made. The process has not started. Those people who used to visit Afghanistan just to see, I remember when we were in the Islamic College, Peshawar University, the people from Europe used to come to Afghanistan, to Kabul University, to all those places. They used to come for the winters and summers. They used to, and the food stuff was so cheap inside Afghanistan. The transport was so cheap in Afghanistan because of the stability inside Afghanistan. But today, if you compare the Afghani rupee with Pakistan, that is correct. But overall, the economy of Afghanistan has not flourished. It has gone down because it has no base, no industry, no export, no connectivity. It's a war-torn country. The opium trade is on. 66% of Afghanistan is under the domination of Taliban, and Taliban has added nothing to Afghanistan except war and fighting.
War and fighting. So, this coming to Pakistan-Afghanistan relations, Mr. Hashmi, President Ashraf Ghani on his two-day visit. This visit is a very significant visit. Chief Minister himself said that this is going to be a very important visit of President Ashraf Ghani. President met the Pakistani Prime Minister, our Prime Minister Imran Khan, and the Chief of Army Staff and the top Pakistani officials. How can we do away with this mistrust somehow that is there between Pakistan and Afghanistan? President Ghani himself has been very at times critical of Pakistan. How can we do away with that?
Yeah, first on the economic side, just a little bit of clarification. I was talking about the improvement of Afghan economy in the comparative perspective.
Right.
That there was a time when several thousand Afghanis used to equal $1, and now it's just less than 100 Afghani to
it's
a dollar.
Comparatively better,
comparatively
right?
better, not in any other perspective, but in the comparative perspective. That's what I was talking about. That in that term, and that is of course is a bubble economy. It's being injected. You are on crutches.
Right.
So crutches means your dependency would continue, and it will continue unfortunately for a longer period of time, because I don't see any indicators to install kind of an industry that can mobilize the economy. Number one. As for the dialogue things is concerned, President Karzai was quite hawkish as for the mudslinging is concerned. He passed his all 13 years mudslinging, Pakistan putting all the blames on it, and unfortunately President Ghani has not kept the tradition alive as well at sporadic, intermittent levels. Not that much of that President Karzai, but it depends.
Interestingly, later on, President Karzai was also critical of Americans.
Yeah.
He was criticizing the Americans as well.
You see, the point is that it's more of an Indian factor when it comes to Pakistan with Afghanistan. Right. It's more of an Indian factor. If we should not ignore this perspective. Now, when a president goes anywhere, when there is a summit dialogue, you have all kind of a whole, a whole series of meetings with different stakeholders in a host country. So don't get too much excited about it. That's a protocol. I worked in that situation as a career, one of a private career. So it's a protocol that you meet different stakeholders and that. The point is that it's good that we are having dialogue at the summit with Afghanistan. This is a good thing. Now coming to the warlords, as Brigadier Saab has rightly mentioned, it's about the warlords, and warlords, their key is the bags of dollars that keeps them under control and all that. Now who has that cash? Countries like Afghanistan, Pakistan and certain other countries, we are cash hungry countries, and in the world who has the cash and who gives the cash? It's the United States. So whoever gives the cash, and in case of Afghanistan as well, is the United States. So who is going to fill the vacuum of leadership and the government and other main acting things is the United States. It still holds the key. And then for these dialogues.
But even before Americans, Afghanistan was never really very stable politically.
It has a history of instability. This region, certain places are like that. They are the trouble places. Like in the Palestine is a trouble place. Afghanistan is a trouble place. So it's natural, unfortunately, with some kind of a geographical influence or whatever you call it as a curse of the land. So it continues with that. So, but as for the warlords, I believe that US holds the key because they have the bags of dollars to give. All right, number one. And as for Pakistan and Afghanistan is concerned, this visit is certainly welcoming visit, and it's good that we are dialoguing and we are not mudslinging at each other, and it's going to produce some outcomes, and especially with the Indian factor, I would say that, because Indian factor is have a significant influence in Afghanistan. Whenever it comes to bilateral relations or trilateral relations, Indian card dominates, it shines. So we have to take care of that. So closer we get with Afghanistan, the better we are.
I was
for both countries.
I was reading, I'll add to his point, to my colleague. I was reading in a book written on Afghanistan that Afghanistan has been a place which after every 70 to 80 years has been in turmoil, and it has a history, because here the amalgamation of 5 major powerful civilizations are taking place: Muslim civilization, Persian civilization, Hinduism, then Buddhism, and then
Central
another
Asian.
Chinese civilization. So all these civilizations are in conflict with each other. They want to assert and reassert itself. So if one gains some ground, the other pushes back, withdraws. And then when the one which has withdrawn, after some time also it rises and then stumble again with the it takes place after every century, after every 80 or 70 to 80, 90 years, and then the turmoil comes and gets calm after some time, and then there is a stability, and after some time again the same situation you come across.
So what do you think? How can the Afghans work out on a leadership consensus? How can they have a consensus on the leadership?
I think in Afghanistan there is a lot of potential in the people to sit, because it is a tribal system, and in tribal system the Mashar by Jirga is being elected, he is considered and he is given the authority to speak for them. So number one. Number two, the key is with the regional powers. It is China, it is Russia, it is Pakistan, it is Iran, and to some extent India also, because India has been investing a lot there. The Dilaram road, the Chabahar, they have transport, they have investment in the transportation system, and that their officers are being trained inside India. And there is a lot of cultural influence of India in Afghanistan. So India is also to some extent involved in that. So all these powers have to agree on one point, that let's sit together to give peace to Afghanistan and forget about these proxies and fighting a war on another side to settle scores against each other. So that is another thing. And then Afghanistan in itself, Afghanistan has to sit together, think over. Ashraf Ghani, who has no, I think, background of fighting as a warlord inside Afghanistan. He has been
Economist.
a World Bank employee, and I think this has gone to his credit that he has influenced the international power to come to some solution to the Afghan peace process. I think this credit must be given to him. So far his visit to Pakistan is concerned, it should be welcome, and I think it has again given the hopes that Pakistan and Afghanistan leadership has no contention in between, and they can sit together, they can act like brothers, and all those people, countries like India, like others, who are creating mistrust between them,
Right.
so they can be sidelined and a peace can be sought for Afghanistan.
Mr. Hashmi, do you think that the Taliban in today's talks, let's say, or in the future, they would agree to have talks with the Kabul government, keeping in mind that their tenure would expire in September? By the way, President Ghani is already on an extension given by the Supreme Court of Afghanistan. How are the Taliban looking at the Kabul government and to this whole issue? Are they going to agree to have talks with the Kabul government?
Two things. Number one, the Taliban might be tired, might be exhausted, but they are not finished, and they are still holding the ground, and they are war hardened. This is one set. Another set is President Ashraf Ghani type, and a lot of other men and women, most I've been interacting with, who have studied and lived abroad and acquired the knowledge of modern day world to run the country, and they can do that. The disconnect is that the war hardened Taliban and this modern element, they need to be connected at some point. Now the point is that who is ready to give up what? Talibans are not going to give up on their emirate dream and certain other issues, right? This has to be understood.
This is a very interesting point, but don't you think that in last 18 years especially, they have also learned some sort of lesson, that they cannot go with their own points, they can't dictate Americans, let's say, or the Kabul government of doing whatever they want to do.
Look, the point is that this thing, these 2 points I've just said about the strong points of Taliban, rhetoric you say or whatever, that's their oxygen. Minus that, they are dead. Okay, their mobilization is over then. Okay, the point is that Taliban are, whether over the years they've been saying that, yes, they've been saying that, but they are ready to give up on that. They cannot give up on that. That is their dilemma. They now at this point they cannot give it up. If you give it up, all that. Now what is happening in Qatar? If we are saying that we are dialoguing with Taliban, and then we have seen that the blast in Kabul, okay, so it implies 2 things. Number one, either Taliban themselves are doing these kind of terrorist activities to exert more pressure to strengthen their position in the dialogue, or there is a grouping among the Taliban, as some of the analysts are suggesting that they are within the Taliban, there is a grouping. Number one, the group which is conducting the terrorist activities, they don't want to give up on their main fundamentals, right? So, and the other who say that, okay, let's have some kind of a compromise to continue. So that's an issue, and this issue remain still to be unresolved. And yes, please.
I think my colleague, I will just add upon. I don't think that Taliban are exhausted, because they have their own economy. They are dominating 66% of Afghanistan at the moment, and even the Afghan government convoys or the American convoys who are crossing their areas, they pay the tax to them. They get permission from them that we want to go from this area, please allow us. This is number one. They have developed their opium trade, they have the war economy, and then at the same time they are occupying mineral resources in their own, like Helmand, like all those places. So I think whatever the blasts are happening, so they want to go from the position of strength to dialogue table, and they want to show that we are discussing all these things with you, but we are not tired. We can take you on. If you want to continue, we are ready. The thing is with you.
And by the way, it's President Trump himself who ordered the
Yes.
pull out of troops from Afghanistan,
Number
not
one.
the Taliban.
Number
so
one. Number
they're
two.
talking because they want to talk.
Number
Americans
two,
want to talk.
the American economy, you know, you see the mind of Mr. Trump. He is acting like economist. He is not acting like a politician like the American president.
Yeah, he's
also
a successful,
the
he's
war
a
in
successful
Afghanistan isn't going-
businessman. Yeah, he's
He
a
is
businessman.
successful. So he says that trillions of American dollars have gone in an Afghan war. Now we should say it. We should say goodbye to this war and invest this money somewhere else.
Right.
So this is number two. And number three, I tell you that I'm coming to your point that Talibans have learned a lot from the past experiences. They cannot undo the Bamiyan statues like they did before. They cannot deny the rights to women. They cannot keep them to their homes. They cannot bring all those things which they did in the previous Taliban era, and the three governments accepted them, Pakistan, then UAE, Saudi Arab, and then they were thinking we should not have done it
And also-
because of their acts.
And
So-
there's now even a new generation within the
Yes,
Taliban.
and
you know,
the
so
new
these are not the
generation has come
old.
within the Taliban,
Yes.
and they are objecting to all these things. That why you are, and the 14-point agenda, you must know it. The Taliban has given a blueprint of their future government. That if they come in power, how they are going to run their next government. So in that they are very clear. The Americans have appreciated that this government is not going to be like the previous government.
They have something in mind. The Taliban have something in mind if they come to power. Briefly, now your take on the Afghan situation at the moment.
Now, couple of points I want to mention as we conclude. I recall, I think it was almost 35 years ago, I recall something from brother Ahmad Shah Massoud, who said that everybody is trying to help us not to end the war but to continue it, number one. Number two is that I recall a corps commander from, that was January 2000, visit of Senator Tim Johnson, a Democrat, to Quetta. So I was involved in that meeting also. I remember him saying to the corps commander, to American senator, he said that don't isolate Taliban, don't abandon them. And when they abandoned it, you see that that was all the opium trade, the other trade, you know, they were doing it, and they captured the space. Right. So Americans are not going to definitely make this mistake, and this Qatar dialogue process, another dialogue process, as a part of that, the lesson Americans have learned that by isolating Afghanistan. So that's why these dialogues processes are there, right. So they should not isolate it. Right. So let's not pull a big rabbit out of these dialogue processes. It is continuing. Now the two things, decisive factor, what is going to make? Number one, how much money United States can roll in to calm down and to tame the warlords, number 1 point. And how much time factor United States is giving to this temporary impasse in Afghanistan, because they are opening up new front elsewhere for their military industrial complex economy.
And I think that's what Secretary Pompeo said. Perhaps as soon as possible, before September 1st, they want to just deal with the Taliban and work on it.
I would conclude, yes.
Short of time.
Just one sentence. I think the peace process is going to succeed. I hope that nothing is going to mar it, but the indicators which are coming, by end of this year, the Americans will withdraw, and there is going to be a broad-based government inside Afghanistan, where all the engaging parties are going to be involved, and given some share or segment of power inside Afghanistan.
So you hope.
Well, that's what we all are looking for, a broad-based government in Afghanistan. Let's hope.
Fingers crossed. Let's hope for the best. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us. Shah, pleasure having you on the show. Thank you for joining us. Mr. Hashmi, pleasure having you on the show. Thank you for your time. Thank you for joining us. That's all from today's dialogue. See you next time for the